króciutko otworzę to nadzwyczajne nasze zebranie seminarium naukowe, nie zebranie, to seminarium naukowe i od razu chciałem przede wszystkim podziękować naszym gościniom, które zgodziły się w nim wystąpić w takich trudnych okolicznościach, a także Tomkowi Kośkowi i Agnieszce, którzy to spotkanie zorganizowali. I teraz Wam, znaczy się Agnieszce i Tomkowi, oddaję głos i zamieniam się w słuch.
Dzień dobry, drodzy przyjaciele. Witaj, Tomku. Dobry dzień, Julia. Julia, hello.
Dzień dobry, słyszę Panią. Tak.
Dobry dzień, Tina, hello.
Dzień dobry.
Najważniejsze osoby są z nami. Myślę, że nie trzeba wiele słów, żeby powiedzieć, że to spotkanie ma szczególny wymiar poznawczy, ale przede wszystkim symbol. Jesteśmy tu po to, aby posłuchać świadectwa osób, które są w sercu konfliktu, postrzegają go i emocjonalnie, i naukowo. I myślę, że sensownie będzie od razu oddać im głos. Wystąpienia Julii i Tiny będą w języku angielskim, wystąpienie Tomka będzie w języku polskim, aczkolwiek myślę, że właściwym moderatorem będziesz tam ty.
Które są na Ukrainie, to jest Julia, antropolożka, która niesamowite...
Halo?
I uciekła z Kyiwa do Khmelnytskiego.
Muszę wyłączyć mikrofony.
Albo profesor Buchowski nasz. Kurwa.
Natalia, muszę
Prosimy o wyciszenie mikrofonów poza prelegentami. Dziękuję. Tomku, oddaję Ci głos. Występujesz razem z przyjaciółkami, sam jesteś w sieci i znajomości. Ukraina była zawsze obszarem dla Ciebie żywotnie bliskim. Dlatego uważam, że jako gość masz tutaj prawo głosu i Tobie przekazuję pałeczkę.
Dziękuję. Dzień dobry. Spotykamy się dziś w jakże trudny i tragiczny czas wojny Ukrainy z rosyjską okupacją na seminarium Antropolog na wojnie, obserwacje z Ukrainy. Choć wystąpienia naszych gościń, ukraińskich antropolożek, wybrzmią w języku, no jak zwykle, przepraszam, internet, wybrzmią w języku angielskim, postanowiłem, że swój drobny, bardzo drobny, moderacyjny wkład przedstawię w języku polskim i ukraińskim. Dlatego, że jakże 100 lat temu na pograniczu polsko-ukraińskim, czyli tu, gdzie teraz mieszkam, między innymi w Sanoku, mieszkańcy tutejsi znali zarówno ukraiński, jak i język polski. I tak naprawdę tragiczne wydarzenia jakby XX wieku ów pograniczny bilingwizm mocno ograniczyły. Ale kto wie, być może jesteśmy świadkami nowego procesu, być może ten bilingwizm pogranicza w jakimś wymiarze zostanie przywrócony do życia. Доброго дня! Сьогодні в цей важкий і трагічний час війни України з російською окупацією ми зустрічаємось на семінарі «Антрополог на війні. Спостереження з України». Хоча виступ наших гостей, українських антропологинь, будуть англійською, я вирішив зробити свій невеликий вклад українською та польською. 100 років тому на польсько-українському прикордоні, де зараз я живу, місцеві жителі знали одну і другу мову. Трагічні події ХХ століття суттєво обмежили цю прикордонну двомовність. Але хто знає, чи не вдасться нам часом внаслідок нинішніх подій трішки повернутися до життя. W trakcie studiów w goszczącym nas instytucie, moim rodzimym instytucie, uczono mnie, że antropologię można uprawiać nawet w najbliższym sąsiedztwie i wcale nie trzeba wyjeżdżać gdzieś w odległe regiony, kraje. Antropologiczna perspektywa obecna może być także w sytuacji wojny. Wojny, która w przypadku Ukrainy stała się współudziałem wszystkich jej obywateli. Wojna, jak pisał Ludwik Stoma, to krwiożercza, zabójcza, przerażająca gra. Jej zasady mają się nijak do cywilno-pokojowych dekalogów praw człowieka i obywatela zawartych w odległym przedwojennym czasie umów, przysiąg i zobowiązań. Kultura ludzka nie znosi jednak chaosu. Czas mordu ma też swoją strukturę. Jej zrozumienie powinno być wyzwaniem dla antropologów. Під час навчання в приймаючому інституті мене навчили, що антропологією можна займатися навіть в безпосередньому сусідстві, і що не обов'язково їздити десь в далекі країни. Антропологічна перспектива також може бути присутня в ситуації війни, до якої у випадку України причетні всі її громадяни. Війна, як писав Людвік Стома, польський антрополог, є кровожерливою, смертельною, жахливою грою, і права не мають нічого спільного з декалогами громадського миру, правами людини та громадянина, прийматих у далеких довоєнних періоді контрактів, клятв і зобов'язань. Однак людська культура ненавидить хаос. Час вбивства також має свою структуру. Розуміння цього має бути викликом також для антропології. W ramach dzisiejszego spotkania swoje próby etnograficznego opisu wojny, zapewne z próbami antropologicznego jej rozumienia, przedstawią dwie doskonałe ukraińskie antropolożki, które cały czas przebywają w granicach walczącego państwa ukraińskiego. Pierwszą z nich będzie dr Julia Bujskych, która przez pierwsze dni wojny pozostawała w rodzimym Kijowie, a z czasem ewakuowała się do Chmielnicka. W swoim wystąpieniu zatytułowanym Within the War, The Everyday Life on a Home Front in Kyiv and Khmelnytskyi przedstawi opis własnych wojennych doświadczeń i zwróci uwagę na rutynowe zachowania w życiu codziennym czasu wojny. Z kolei dr Tina Polek przedstawi wystąpienie pod tytułem Online Routine of the Russian Invasion of Ukraine, w którym opowie nam o obecności i praktykach Ukraińców w wirtualnym świecie w czasie wojny. Zapraszam do wysłuchania moich koleżanek. У рамках сьогоднішньої зустрічі дві чудові українські антропологині, які її досі перебувають в межах воєнної української держави, презентуватимуть свої спроби етнографічного опису війни, ймовірно, зі спробами її антропологічного осмислення. Першою з них буде доктор Юлія Bujskych, яка в перші дні війни залишалася в рідному Києві, звідки згодом евакуювалася до Хмельницького. У своїй промові під назвою Within the War, The Everyday Life on a Home Front in Kyiv and Khmelnytskyi вона опише власний досвід війни та зверне увагу на повсякденні поведінки у сучасному житті під час війни. У свою чергу доктор Тіна Полек, презентуючи промову під назвою Online Routine of the Russian Invasion of Ukraine, має на меті розповісти про присутність та практики українців у віртуальному світі під час війни. Запрошуємо послухати моїх подруг з України. Дякую. Julio.
Dziękuję Tomku and szanowni Państwo, dziękuję bardzo za zaproszenie. Już bardzo dawno nie mówiłam po polsku tak naprawdę. Zacznę od języka angielskiego. I have chosen to make this report in English, not only because it is an international language of academia, but also because English helps me to keep my mind and myself in some frames, not to be over-emotional. And it's very difficult nowadays not to be over-emotional, as you might understand. Slavic languages, including Ukrainian, Russian, and Polish, have so many adjectives and so many emotions just inside of the structure of our languages. So from that point of view, English is much helpful for me to express my thoughts and experiences. I am far from any theoretizing nowadays. The only approach I see which is helpful for me during this time is reflexivity developed by Kirsten Hastrup, Judith Oakley, Sigrid Rausing, and many other anthropologists who used autoethnography and reflexivity approach to reflect on their field work. I can't see my own country and the places where I am as a field. Well, it's impossible for me to build any appropriate distance to this field because I am the insider. I'm the one who is from Ukraine, who lives in Ukraine, and so on. But I hope that my insights may somehow give you the understanding how we cope with the situation as human beings, as women, as Ukrainian citizens, and as scholars. So first, I would like you to show just 2 glimpses on the way how my everyday looked the day before the war. Tomku, proszę pokaż pierwsze zdjęcie. So I can show the presentation for you now. So the first, on the 23rd of February, drugie zdjęcie właśnie. On the 23rd of February, I bought flowers. I didn't think that there will be a war tomorrow. And I'm afraid that these flowers are still standing in a vase in my kitchen. These pink tulips. I don't know whether you see or not, because I can't see if you are able to see this.
Nie widzimy. Tomku, może pokaz slajdów i wtedy pójdzie.
Tak, drugie zdjęcie właśnie, drugi slajd.
Przepraszam, czy widać prezentację, czy nie? Bo mnie
Widać,
pokazuje,
nie
że...
pokazu slajdów i nie przewijają się slajdy.
Aha, dobra.
Widzimy je tylko z boku. Poproś Julię, żeby może włączyła. Znaczy nie wiem, może my tak widzimy, może ona już ma inaczej włączone.
Nie, drugie. Właśnie drugie zdjęcie przed tym. No.
Kwiaty.
I just, kwiaty. I just don't have a laptop here because my laptop was damaged in an evacuational train. I have a phone, so I can show you this presentation. Anyway, I spent, the third, anyway. That was my academic everyday, the day before the war, because I was actually reading Bronisław Malinowski article and an anthropological analysis of the war and anthropological analysis of the war. And this phrase, this quotation, in human societies, the impulse of anger is usually transformed into attitudes of hostility or into acts of violence which are culturally determined, is very much about nowadays war, because who could have thought, but this is the war of the former colony with the former empire, which is still empire nowadays. And this war is very much culturally and even religiously determined. In the last 7 years or even more, I have been studying religion and anthropology of religion. And I see so many things which are connected to religion in this war, in both rhetorics of Russian Federation, in the rhetorics of Russian army, and in the way how it's perceived in Ukraine with all the things connected to religion, like being martyr and about redemption and all this. So what is the everyday during the war? This is the 4th slide, actually. The war, by its very definition, by itself, is understood as an outrageously unusual and abnormal state of being, of every human being, of local community, of the whole society, of the country. But much of the work of war is ordinary, because life is going on. Life of ordinary citizens of the country is going on despite the war, despite all the atrocities, all the destruction and morbid it causes. So how the everyday functions in the war for those who are on the home fronts, that was something I was reflecting on. I spent 9 days in Kyiv, and I would stay there, but my mother insisted me to go. She was very anxious that I am staying in Kyiv, so I had just to obey her and go to Khmelnytskyi, which is 350 kilometers from Kyiv. And now I am 9 days in Khmelnytskyi, so this is the equal time, 9 days in Kyiv, 9 days in Khmelnytskyi. Fifth slide, Tomku, proszę. So I outlined 5 categories which shape the everyday in this war. The first category is waiting.
Przepraszam bardzo. Ja bym jednak chętnie obejrzała tą prezentację i jeżeli by się dało zrobić...
Dobrze, przepraszam bardzo, próbuję ją tutaj. Nie wiem dlaczego, ale mi tu nie wskoczyło. Sekundkę w takim razie. Julio, poczekaj.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just can't show the presentation. My technical capabilities are now very
Jeszcze raz spróbuję. Mnie tu pokazywał komputer, że wszystko udostępniam, więc... Sekundę.
Znamy te numery Teamsa.
Dobra, jest okno, jest prezentacja. Robię udostępnij. Czy Państwo widzą? 5. slajd teraz jest.
Tak, ja widzę doskonale wszystko.
Słuchajcie, ja mam też propozycję, żeby osoby, które nie mówią, wyłączyły kamerki, tak, na czas prelekcji gościń, żeby poprawić transfer, tak?
Okej, tak, dobrze, ja...
Agato, dzięki, to dobry...
Dobra,
Tak
to
naprawdę...
przepraszam, rozumiem, że widać już wszystko.
Znaczy, Tomku, widać w takim nie presentation mode, tylko tak jakby jeszcze jakbyś włączył presentation mode, to by było, wiesz, większe by były te slajdy, ale może się tego nie da zrobić. Może musisz to zrobić, zanim udostępnisz, przepraszam, może.
Dobra, jeszcze sekundę w takim razie, przepraszam, ale... I have to say that this is already a miracle that I can speak, because even in Khmelnytskyi we have constantly sireny, air alarms, and we should hide somewhere and switch off the electricity, and Wi-Fi is switched off automatically. So I just, this is a luxury time that I am speaking now. We had the sirens the whole night, because the Starokonstantyniv airport was bombed, which is 40 kilometers from here. So I just want to use this time without sirens to speak, actually. Okay, I hope that everyone can see the 5th slide now. So,
Trzeba najpierw wyłączyć prezentowanie i jeszcze raz udostępnić, bo inaczej cały czas jest wszystko, zablokowało się.
But I can speak simultaneously, not wasting our time, can I?
Yes, keep going.
Okay, so what shapes the everyday in the war? Of course, we are all in use. Of course, we are all listening to the sounds of bombing and shelling and air alert alarms, sirene. And to some extent, we are getting used to it, because human beings have this capability to get used to everything, unfortunately. But this is the way how we survive. On the 5th day of war, I caught myself on the understanding that I got used to the sounds of bombing. I got used to the sounds of shelling, and I got used to the sirens. They don't bother me anymore. But the other day I understood that I can hear sirens even when they are not actually weaving. That was bad. So the everyday is always about waiting. Waiting about the news. Waiting when your friends and beloved ones will answer you how they are. Because the main question nowadays is jak ty? How are you? Where are you? I have at least 3 male friends with whom I've studied at the university and the history department, like who are now in the army, and sometimes I don't have any connection with them. So of course I'm waiting when they will be able to answer me. And just right, I'm okay, don't worry, how are you? This is waiting. In the first several days of war in Kyiv, we all have been waiting that this may end in a week or so, but it is not ending for 19 days yet. No. So what we can do, we can care and stay connected. This is the second moment that shapes the everyday in the war. Caring about ourselves is the major thing, because if we won't care about our health, at least mental health, well, at least eating, at least trying to sleep, at least trying to stay hydrated, we won't survive. I know it because I myself have a just constant lack of sleep, and even pills don't help now. But still I'm trying to sleep at least several hours per day. That helps. Staying connected is important, because when you stay connected with the others, your colleagues and friends across the country, you have this feeling that this horror may be over, that people you love are alive, they are staying somewhere, they are relatively safe, and you are relatively safe. So this is okay, we are grateful for it, so we stay grounded, something like that. The third very important moment is the maintaining of routine strategies of survival. Because there was a huge panic on the 24th and 25th of February in Kyiv, there were just monstrously long queues everywhere, like pharmacies, groceries. Just it was even impossible to stand and to wait until your turn will come, actually, because people were buying anxiously everything they may or may not need. And at that moment, it was very important to keep yourself more or less calm, not to stay in the monstrously long queue because it was just senseless and useless, just to do what you can, to buy food supplies. But in the context of my mother and me, we had a lot of food supplies which we inherited from our grandmother. God bless her memory. Unfortunately, she passed in December 2021, but she was the child of Second World War. She survived Nazi occupation in Kiev, and she was always buying supplies of food, toilet paper, oil, everything, just in case. She was constantly afraid that something may happen any black day. And when the war actually started on the 24th of February, we were thanking my mother's mother and my grandmother for that supplies, because she did it just in case, and that case came unfortunately. So, but there was no single day when I wasn't thanking that she's not with us, because she won't survive second war in Kyiv anyway. So it would be a disaster for her. So the first days of war, we were just waiting, and then we went to grocery and bought something. Also, we were adjusting our home space for war. In Kyiv, I am living alone on the 16th floor of the apartment building, and it was very dangerous to stay on the 16th floor. So I took the minimum of things and went to my mother's place on the 5th floor. And it was more safe there. So we did a sort of barricades near windows and closed windows with everything we could, with books, with blankets, with pillows, because sometimes the sounds of shelling and bombing were so strong that our windows were trembling. So we just felt the vibration of this sound wave from bombing. Another way that shapes the everyday is coping with everything, with fear, with anxiety, with this wide range of feelings of being useless, of feeling guilt for not doing more, because there is always a guilt that you can do more, you can help the army, You are not a doctor, you're just a scholar, you can't save lives, you can't fight. What can you do? Especially in Kyiv, when we were just locked and the left bank of the city, when the bridges across the Dnieper River were closed and they were guarded by our army, it was impossible to get from the left bank to the right bank and vice versa. Only 1 or 2 bridges were opened per day, and it was barely impossible to connect from one side of Kyiv to the other side of Kyiv. So just do what you can not to get mad. And the last thing, what shapes the everyday in the war is a female solidarity for me. I witnessed it already being in an evacuation train to Khmelnytskyi, and I am witnessing it here in Khmelnytskyi, being involved in volunteering. The evacuational train was perhaps one of the most difficult things I've survived through in my life, because women, pregnant women, little kids, toddlers, teenagers without parents, they were led on this evacuation train, no men, and you could take only minimum of things which you can take barely on your chest, on your back, small backpack. So I even don't have any double clothes with me. And even my small laptop was damaged in this crowd. But I was standing for almost 9 hours in this train because there was obviously no place to sit. I will show you pictures after. But women were helping each other just immensely. There was a woman who told that she's a psychologist, a therapist, and she can offer help. The other woman was helping the other women. The breastfeeding women were helped by the others to find some comfort place in this train. The elder women were playing with kids who were crying. So, and of course, women were taking care of the teenagers who were traveling without parents, because teenagers are also kids and they're very emotional and they can't cope with all these horrible things. Also, we were leaving Kyiv under the shelling because Russians were shelling the district of Kyiv, Sofiivska-Borщagivka, which is on the way of railway. And of course, we've heard the sounds of shelling and we saw the fire. And our train was with shadowed windows and with lights off. So the kids were scared very much and we all were taking care of the other kids. So the female solidarity was huge. In Khmelnytskyi, the majority of volunteers are women. The railway station, there are dozens of women who cook, who just made supplies for those IDPs who come to Khmelnytskyi and travel further to Western Ukraine or to Poland or to Slovakia, and they help very much. Even in my host family, the people that host me, they are very much involved in this volunteering, and the woman, which is my host mother, she involved me in baking things. So we bake bread and cookies and pies daily and bring them to the railway station. So yeah, I see this solidarity and it very much helps to see the everyday in this war. Because baking has become part of my everyday since I've come to Khmelnytskyi, and this is the way how I can help. Because without a laptop, I don't feel I can help as a scholar, even writing something. So now there are some pictures which can illustrate the everyday. Tomku, proszę pokaż 6. zdjęcie. 6, no i dalej, jak tam na prezentacji. So the 6th picture, if you can see it, please let me know.
No tak.
Tomasz, are you here?
Jestem.
6. zdjęcie.
Mhm.
That is my mother My mother is an archaeologist and she stays in Kyiv. She didn't want to leave her Institute of Archaeology and go anywhere, and she stays in Kyiv with our cat. The cat was scared and is scared to death by the sounds of bombing and shelling, and we were trying hardly to comfort him. So this is our first night from 24th till 25th of February in a underground car parking where we went because that night was very hard. The missile hit the apartment building in Poznaniu area of Kyiv. This is left bank, not far from us, and we've heard actually those sounds. They were very strong. So we were sitting the whole night in that underground car parking. My mother survived it badly, and she told me that she won't go to any bomb shelter anyway. We were just hiding in the corridor or in our bathroom when there were strong sounds of bombing. The seventh slide, siódmy poproszę, is just a few pictures, the way how we organized our home space, building our home fortress.
I'm sorry for interrupt you again, but now I really can't say seventh slide. So I still...
Niestety robię wszystko, co w mojej mocy, ale tu coś Teams chyba odmawia. U mnie jest pełen...
A może powinien pan na chwileczkę opuścić spotkanie i wrócić, bo to czasami pomaga. Dosłownie na momencik. Wyjść i dołączyć.
Mogę spróbować, nie ma problemu. Julio, kontynuuj.
Dobrze. I think it's very important to reflect on how our home space is changing during the war, because it's not peaceful times anymore. We all are endangered. There are people, as my mother, who have problems with blood pressure and heart, and they just can't stand being underground in any bomb shelter, in any basement. So we were at home, and she's at home constantly, despite all this shelling, shooting and bombing. So how did we prepare our flat, which has 2 rooms, it's rather small, to some unpredictable things, let's put it that way. We glued the windows with crosses from paper, the way how my grandmother did during the Second World War being in Kyiv. So we closed it with thick paper, carton, and with some books, especially the window at the place where we slept. Also, we put several blankets and pillows, and it somehow caused an effect of that we are protected. So that was that way. I think Tomasz will show when he can, and you all will be able to see this presentation after. So also one of the features of our everyday were some evening precautions. So after we all have restricted hours. It's called, I don't know in English, in Ukrainian, komendanska godzina. This is the time when you can't go out on the street, yes? In Kyiv, it was from 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. and then till 7 p.m. Well, it was free, but from 7 p.m. in the evening, from 7 p.m. in the evening till 7 a.m. in the morning, you were not allowed to go out the street. In Khmelnytskyi, it's a bit longer. It's, I think, from 8 p.m. till 7 a.m. Yes, so barely you can't go out in late evening and during the night and the early morning. In Kyiv, we all were told to switch off the lights and to sit in the dark. So if you will see the 9th slide, 9, then you will see the darkness, because the houses in front of our house were all dark. Only 1 or 2 windows were with electricity, with light actually. We were coping with candle, sitting with a candle. And that was very much alike the bedtime stories my grandmother and great-grandmother were used telling me about the way how they survived Nazi occupation in Kyiv during the Second World War. Candles, closed windows, no light, and very limited supply of foods. Well, in the era of internet, we were grateful that we are in a better situation than during the Second World War. Further on my presentation, I have another pictures about the exodus on 4th of March, because I left Kyiv on in the evening on 4th of March 2022, and it was the quest to get from left bank to the right bank and then to get through the metro, which I was waiting for almost 2 hours, to the railway station. And the railway station overcrowded by thousands of IDPs and future refugees, unfortunately, and who were just fleeing. The majority of people were fleeing in nowhere, not knowing where they are going. Just, you know, it's like a wave, the ocean wave, which takes you with it and brings somewhere. That I felt that it was that way. The evacuation train was overcrowded, and as I told, you may see that on further pictures which I have here. And what I felt being in the railway station in the evacuation train, that the majority of people want to come back home. They never didn't want to go abroad or to immigrate or to reside anywhere abroad. They were forced by these unbearable circumstances, so they want to come back. And as you might know, the majority of population in northern and eastern, southern, partially central Ukraine is bilingual, Ukrainian and Russian. But in the case of Ukraine, the language is not a factor of ethnic or national identification. It's not something that shapes your identity. I'm also from a Russian-speaking family. My father, God bless his memory, is an ethnic Russian from Siberia. So I was speaking 2 languages since being a child. And that doesn't make me Russian, it makes me even more Ukrainian than I ever been. So this train was bilingual, and people were just outraged and offended and overwhelmed by grief, because many of them lost everything. People from Chernihiv, people from Sumy and Sumska Oblast, people from suburbs of Kyiv, Irpin and Bucha, and people from Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast, they lost everything, but still they were determined to come back and to rebuild. That was very much impressive, and I very much hope that we will all have this possibility to come back to the place which we call home. And coming back to the notion of everyday, in that evacuational train, which is on slide 12, tak, 12 slide I 2 zdjęcia na nim. People were having not so much luggage or things, but they were carrying things which define their everyday at home. Some pictures of family members, some little icons of Bohoroditsa, the Holy Mother of God, some children's toys, the most important for those children, something that husband gave his wife, something that daddy gave to his children. And there was not about clothes or things or some valuable things, even like laptop or some piece of technique, but that were things which define everyday actually. And I also took something that defined my everyday to this evacuation train. To make this everyday be with me and with other IDP persons. Just to remind us that we are here we are alive. We should be grateful for it to keep us grounded. That's all. Okay, my last slide is 13. I still feel very weird without seeing the presentation and with the feeling that you all don't see it, but still. The last
Już jest
slide...
wszystko w porządku.
Good. The last slide is Khmelnytskyi bomb shelter on the 6th of March 2020. I was there once and I told to my host family that I will never come back to that basement, because in the basement you can feel more fear than at the street. Because in the basement there is lack of air. These basements were not supposed to be bomb shelters. They're usual basements under the Soviet apartment buildings. And people in the basement, they are mostly scared and they see no hope because they are scared, and when this anxiety circulates around the crowd of people, it becomes stronger. That is my experience. What is also weird about my being in Khmelnytskyi, despite all the volunteering and all this female solidarity I witness here, this city is almost without kids. There are no kids on the streets, no baby carriages, almost. During these 9 days, I could barely see kids. So I think that even women with kids from Khmelnytskyi, which is a relatively safe place, they went somewhere western. Yes, so here we can hear the sounds of air alert alarms, sireny, all the time, just constantly. And I may confess that I hear them even when they are not present. This is the way how it goes. But still, I feel a lot of hope and I do what I can. That's all. That defines my everyday. Also, I try to write Facebook posts in English just to inform my English-speaking colleagues about what is going on. That also keeps me feeling useful, not useless during this war. Here I will end. Thank you very much for your invitation and for your attention, and hope you will be able to see my presentations and pictures. Yeah. Dziękuję bardzo.
Dziękuję, Julio. Teraz poprosiłbym o wystąpienie Tinę, natomiast jeszcze wcześniej pewnie panią Karolinę Dziubatą prosiłbym o sprawdzenie waiting room, bo dostałem wiadomość, że jakieś osoby mają problem z dołączeniem i czekają na potwierdzenie.
Ale ja tutaj nie widzę w poczekalni nikogo, niestety.
Okej, to tylko dostałem taką wiadomość. Dobrze. Tino.
Okay, so I will start in a minute, just a second. Oh, sorry, it doesn't want to show the document. Just a second, please. One little minute. So here it is. Sorry, do you see the screen?
Yes. Yes. So, okay.
Okay. So I will try to talk about the online everyday life during this war, because nowadays the digitalization is the part of our life, and we can't divide online and offline practices. It is obvious that I can't do the normal ethnography. The most information I have is the autoethnography, and maybe people I know who just share information with me. I will try to focus on 3 topics. First one is communication in messengers. The second one is social media. And the third one, I think it is important nowadays for Ukrainians. So memes that Ukrainians create and memes that we see every day and memes that help us to overcome all we see during our offline everyday life. So first of all, I will try to talk about, as Julia already said, messengers are very important because the first question we ask every morning is, how are you? And normally most of the Ukrainians use not the phone. Nowadays, maybe with older people only, is they use different messengers. It could be Telegram, it could be Viber, it could be WhatsApp or any other. And people just try to show other people their care about them. So they worry about them, they show their love, their support, their solidarity. They try to listen to them. They try to anger together. They try to show their support. So here is several screens of the real conversations of my friends with their relatives, with their friends. So the first one is just not very emotional. Yes, it is a family chat of my friend, but here it is written, are you okay? Yes, I'm okay. And how are you? And how are you? I'm okay. Okay. So the second one is the sister of my friend. She lives in Kharkiv, and this conversation took was I don't know the date actually. So it was after the Kharkiv was bombed already. So and they were talking about what is going on in Kharkiv. And the third one is a chat from the work from my friend. So and they do it every morning, and they call it перекличка. Just tell. They ask everybody to tell how are you, and this is a new ritual maybe for Ukrainians, just to write and to ask and to hear that everything is okay. And if everything is not okay, the second question will be, how could I help you? And besides, in these chats, people express their emotions. Yes, and they anger together, they laugh together, they cry together. They try to share their emotions with the people they love. I can translate all the screens here, but here you can see different messages about crying, about missing, about the beginning of the spring, about the last night, about being nervous, about airports, about bombs, and about future plans. Are people going to stay in Ukraine, or are they going to go somewhere, or what is going on in their place of living? And these chats, so maybe every phone is full of these chats, and Ukrainians started writing to everybody they know, even if they don't talk to each other every day in the normal life. During the war, they just text each other all the time. If you know someone from Kharkiv, you are texting this person every day. If you know someone from Mariupol, you are texting this person every day. And this online routine is a big part of the everyday life, because you spend a lot of time in these messengers just to communicate with people you love, or just communicate with people you know, actually. So the second thing people do in these messengers, they reflect. They reflect on war, and they try to understand what do they feel. And they try to discuss with their friends and relatives what is actually happening, how could it happen, who is responsible for that, some prognosis when it will be over. And and they just discuss political situation, geopolitical situation. Maybe some of them share some information from the experts and so on and so on. And this reflection about war is very important because people don't communicate offline a lot. Yes, everybody sits at home or just volunteering, and they don't have the opportunity to meet together in the evening and to discuss the things. They are writing the things. And it is very important, like for the emotions and for the understanding and for the support also. The third thing is information. So obviously people are sharing news. They're sharing global news, but mostly they're sharing local news. Yes, who live in one city, they always send each other links, what happened in which district of the city, or what is happening, what is written in the news, and what do they see from their window. They send each other expert predictions, and they send each other a lot of rumors. So these chats are just full of rumors, and maybe it is not very objective, but still I think that chats with parents from the children who go to school and chats with neighbors maybe just the chats that have all the rumors that are functioning in Ukraine. So there are really a lot of it. And this war is a little bit special because all the time you can ask everybody from every city what is happening in your town. You can read it in the news channels or you can see it on the TV, but after that you can check the person you know, what is going on right now, what do you see right now, what do you hear right now, what people are talking about. Is it true that I heard in the news on the TV that something happened there, and or is it not true? And people are checking this information from the witnesses, and this practice is quite new and is connected with digital era. And one important part of information is alarms information. So those alarms are not always heard in every part of the city and in every village. So now we have some apps with these alarms, but at the beginning of the war, a lot of people just shared this information in chats, for example, their family chats. And they sent, oh, it is an alarm there, hide. Oh, thank you, it is over. Oh, hide again. Oh, it is over. And all the day you just getting these messages with the alarms information. The fourth thing people do in messengers, they communicate with their relatives and friends in Russia or Belarus. And this communication is not easy because normally it is communication between relatives, and a lot of people, they receive questions, how are you, from Russians, and they try to describe what is going on here, what is going on in their cities, what do they see from their window. And when they describe this, they get the answer that it is impossible that the Ukrainian army do this, or some other messages from Russian propaganda. And these conversations are really hard for Ukrainians. But there are a lot of other situations when just relatives from Russia don't ask at all, or just don't answer. And it is always difficult. Some of them, they try to show their support. And these black screens is my relatives and friends from Russia who just who are asking, how am I? And they try to say that they are doing everything they can. And you can feel a lot of guilty in these messages, but normally you don't know how to answer to these messages. And maybe the last thing that I could talk about in the messengers context is solidarity with the friends and relatives who live in the West. And here are screens that I got from my different friends from different countries. Some of them are from Poland, some of them are not. And everybody is asking, how am I and how could they help? And every Ukrainian who had someone on the West receives such messages, and we really receive a lot of support. But behind this support, we also feel a lot of guilty for these people to be safe and for us to be unsafe. And it is also very difficult to communicate in these situations because you don't know what to answer to these messages. So maybe this wasn't very analytical part, but these are just main topics I see from the inside that used in messengers communication. The other things I wanted to talk about just in a few words is social networks, because today it is this media is a really also huge part of our lives, not only messengers but social media also, and people really use them as a therapy. You could show your support and love there, and you could show your hate there, and in every case you feel better after doing that. So there are maybe three media that people use for communication during the war. It is Instagram first, and Instagram is interesting because it became political. So the social media where you could see only food and beauty and I don't know, some beautiful pictures now became political, and you see news there, you see awful pictures from the war, you see policy there, and you see people reflection there. Really, people don't share a lot of personal information right now. So they try to share news, they try to share information about volunteers, they share a lot of memes, and they ask people, especially from foreign countries, to close the sky and so on. And this is a new Instagram that appeared in Ukraine. The second social media that is widely used is obviously Facebook. It is classical place for holy wars, and these wars they began much more earlier than the real war began, and this is the media where people do a lot of reposts, where people share a lot of rumors, a lot of information about volunteering, and this is the media when they actually don't share so much pictures but share a lot of their life stories. They describe their everyday life during the war, they share what they saw and what they felt, and how their life is in these conditions. And the third media that is widely used, especially among young people, is TikTok. And I saw even in the article, I don't remember, maybe in New York Times, about TikTok and war in Ukraine, because I didn't also expect this. This media is very important in understanding the war in Ukraine, because it shows a little bit other point. It is very ironical. It shows real everyday life with all these alarms and lines to the supermarkets and so on and so on. And it also creates new heroes, and crashes of the Ukrainians are very good seen in TikTok, and heroes are very good seen in TikTok. And if you want to see not only reposts from the news articles, you should visit TikTok, and you should feel this taste of the war, but mostly without tears, but with irony. And it is also a very important point of view from the inside. And actually, what do people do in social media? People share their grief, their anger, their love, their inspire, especially when they are talking about Ukrainian territorial defense or Ukrainian army. They try to help, they try to connect with each other. They laugh at themselves, they laugh at Russians, they laugh to feel themselves alive. They support and they also reflect and analyze, as in all these chats in messengers with their friends and families. And the third topic I wanted to stay during this seminar is war in memes. Actually, it is not a deep analysis, it is just several main options Ukrainian use memes for. So I will try to show you what Ukrainians are laughing at and why. But I have to say that very often it is a black humor and with obscene language, and because war isn't polite. And maybe, I don't know what is it normal or not on this seminar, but I want to show this war from the inside, from the perspective of the everyday life. And honestly saying, everyday life of the Ukrainians, it isn't very polite nowadays, from the obvious reasons. So maybe the main, so we can describe these memes with three main topics. First of all, they are biased. We live in a black and white world, yes, and in this world, Ukrainians are good and Russians are bad, and it is very good shown in all these memes. The second topic is that Ukrainians and Russians are totally different, and this difference is also very good shown in this new folklore. And the third topic is the dehumanization of the enemy, and it is also shown in a lot of aspects. I tried not to show the most bloody news, but you have to know that they exist, and there are a lot of them. So, first of all, this blog I called "Russians Are Enemies" because a lot of memes they just show this point of view. First of all, they laugh at Russian symbols. Yes, so they call the Russian herb the chicken and so on, and they are laughing from the letter Z that became the symbol of this war for Russians, from Russian flag, from the bird that symbolized Russia, and there are a lot of such memes. Because when you laugh at something, it don't scare you anymore. So the other point is the dehumanization I've talked already about. So it is always about dead Russian soldiers, and that if they go to Ukraine, they will stay here. So, and this humor is really black. For example, a lot of Russian soldiers now have professional burnout. Yes, people are laughing about the tanks we just burn with them, and so on. And but it is not tolerant. Yes, it is not normal in a normal world, but it helps to feel your power here. The other like meme topic is Palyanytsia. I don't know whether you heard it in your news, but it was a big joke in Ukraine when a Russian journalist, I don't know whether I can call her a journalist, so Skabeyeva, she was talking about Ukrainians on Russian television, and she talked about the way Ukrainian army checked who is from Russia and who is not. So that Ukrainians ask Russians to say Palyanytsia, and it is like considered that it is very difficult for Russians to say this word. And when she was talking about this case, she explained the meaning of the word palyanytsia, which is bread actually, and she called it polunitsia, like raspberry, sorry. And there are a lot of memes dedicated to this topic, just how could you see the Russian here. The other important topic in Ukrainian memes about this war is an obscene language word. So a lot of information for Russians to go somewhere to fuck yourself is just everywhere. You could see billboards, you could see memes, you could see just some information near the villages, and this we know the origin of this phrase, but still it is almost a folklore nowadays. Besides Ukrainian, in their memes, they try to show that they are not afraid of the Russian leaders, and they make a lot of jokes about Lavrov, about Putin, and other Russian leaders, and just they always show Russians that have no power to fight Ukrainians, and Ukrainians who have a lot of heroism inside. And one other point is phallic symbols in this folklore. And first I will demonstrate so these jokes about Russians. You know what it means. And the picture on the right is about Ukrainian novel Konotopska Vidma, so a witch from the Konotop, and so it is like a joke because Russians are in Konotop right now, so and that witches from Konotop can do something not very good for them. And another main important topic Ukrainian laughing at is sanctions. So there are dozens of memes about that, about Aeroflot, about McDonald's, about iPhones, about money, about everything. So, and so Ukrainians show Russians as black, and Ukrainians show themselves as heroes, obviously. And a lot of memes are just joking about armed forces of Ukraine. About that Ukrainians believe in their armed forces, that armed forces has a lot of support among people in Ukraine, and even the Romans help them to fight Russian army, and that armed forces of Ukraine are so angry and are so good at fighting that even COVID is disappeared from Ukraine, and so on and so on. And also Ukrainians do a lot of memes about their new crushes. I talked about TikTok, and there are a lot of these pictures of these crushes in other social media. There are maybe 4 main of them. First of course, is our president Volodymyr Zelensky, who didn't have so much support before the war, and we had a lot of jokes about him to being a comedian, but now he is totally a crush for everybody. The second crush is a ghost of Kyiv. So it is a pilot who is fighting with Russian planes, and he's like romantic hero for all the girls here. And the first crush is Arestovich. It is a person from the office of president, and he's well known for being always calm, and Ukrainians appreciate it very much. And the first crush is Vitaly Kim. He's head of the Mykolaiivska Oblast, and every day he do the video, which he starts. Доброго ранку, ми з України. So good morning, we are from Ukraine. And it is also about hope, about inspire, and about everything will be good at last. And phallic symbols that Ukrainians use about themselves. This way you can see it on this presentation. So if Russians are not very impressive in this way, Ukrainians always are. So they're joking about that. And what about the West? So I found not so many memes as about Russians and Ukrainians, but still they are. And a lot of these memes are connected with the support from NATO and support from other countries. So Ukrainians are waiting for this support. And some of these memes, they are connected to the forces Ukrainian do for Western countries, and all they do to show that they are the part of Europe, or actually how the Europe see what Ukraine is doing to them. And I want to finish this my speech with this meme. It is also an optional language, but it is written here that so you will be totally fucked. And I hope that this meme will come true one day. So thank you.
Dziękuję, Tina. Mili Państwo, z racji wcześniejszych problemów technicznych za moment pozwolę sobie wrzucić w czat prezentację Julii, a w tym momencie jest czas, że będzie można zadawać pytania do naszych gościń z Ukrainy. Як знаєте, спочатку була проблема технічна в мене з тим, щоб показати презентацію Юлії. Вона зараз потрапить в чат, буде можна з нею користатись. Якраз зараз є час, коли можна тут поставити питання до наших гостей. Natalia Bloch, prosimy.
Thank you so much.
Później Olena Martynczuk.
Yes. Julia, Tina, thank you so much. We really appreciate that you are here, and I can't imagine how it is to be there. And I have many questions, but I do not want to take too much space, so I will focus on the one which is like a professional question related to our discipline. So I wonder whether you, in these circumstances, do you take field notes? I mean, do you write down your observations, both like autoethnographic and the observations of the war, or these are more like not field notes but the head notes? Julia said that she lost her laptop, so I wonder whether your social media profiles serve as a kind of field diary for you, or you simply do not have time for that because you are engaged in volunteering or other things. Thank you.
Dalia, thank you very much for your question. It's really very important. Yes, I'm taking notes. I have my old school paper diary. I am writing in it because I am aware that it's very important. It's also my duty as a scholar in social sciences and a historian just to fix some events, not to forget about them, because there are a lot of events every day and I think I have to fix them, you know, just to note. Also, I don't like social media, but when the war has started, I renewed my account on Facebook and I started writing deliberately in English, just, you know, to make the world, my English-speaking colleagues and friends, to be aware of what is going on from the inside of the war. So I'm trying to do it the way I can, yes. My laptop was damaged, it doesn't work, but I still have my pen drive. Thankfully, it wasn't damaged, so I have all my work of my entire life with me, and I keep writing.
Thank you, Tina.
Natalio, jakbyś mogła opuścić już rękę i teraz poprosimy Olenę, która była w kolejce. Pani Olena Martynczuk.
Yeah, Julia and Tina, thank you for your presentation. It was very important for me to hear your voice and voice from my hometown. Now I'm in Poznań and I work on my research project, which is based on field works in Ukraine. I was in Ukraine and I made field research about vernacular photo practice. And I also have many questions, but now I'm interested in ethical questions, ethical issues in anthropological research, in your anthropological research of war.
I won't say that it's a research, actually. Tina, would you?
First of all, maybe I will say that I'm not an anthropologist of war, and it wasn't my academic career, and it wasn't my choice. And I will always avoided such topics connected to connected to trauma or violence, because it was inappropriate for me. But now war came to my home, and I have nothing else to write about, because it is the only topic we are living in, and you can't just write about urban anthropology in this case. That's why maybe ethical questions are important, but as for me, I'm too angry for ethical questions right now, and I can't do things to sound very polite, as you've heard, because I think that I have the right for this anger. You were asking, Natalia, about diaries, so I don't do field notes, but I share some of my thoughts from the anthropological perspective in the Telegram. So I have an anthropological channel and I try to share them there, but I'm not writing like normal classical field notes. So maybe ethical questions, when they will appear a little bit later, not right now.
I also will add that it would take decades to analyze what is going on. It's just very painful, it's ongoing, it's fresh, it's very personal. As I mentioned at the very beginning of my presentation, I don't have any distance to this field, and I don't consider my country as a field. My field is Eastern Poland. I have conducted my field work in Podkarpacie on pilgrimages, shrines, and interconfessional relationships. So this is my field, actually, and I hope very much that I will come back to Przemysl and other areas of Eastern Poland, like Włodawa and other places, where I was happy to conduct my fieldwork and research religion there. But as Tina told, yes, the war came literally to my home, to Kyiv, where I was born, and there was no other choice just to fix and to write, because I'm not only a woman or Ukrainian citizen, I'm also a scholar. So I would never call myself an anthropologist of war, and I would never research it, as I was not able to research Maidan or war on Donbass. It's too personal.
We have one more question from Roman Urbanowicz.
Yeah, hello. Hope you can see and hear me now. Extremely pleased to see you both doing as well as it can be under the circumstances, I guess. And I have a bit of an maybe abstract question, of which I'm not quite sure if it's the right time to ask you, but also I feel like you being researchers from Ukraine are the most competent people to answer this. Do you have any ideas what kind of anthropology makes any sense now? And what I mean is that I've attended a bunch of online events similar to this one, and people were saying their ideas or impressions, mostly people from the West who are specialists in Ukraine or Russia, and they were saying sort of smart things, but I couldn't get rid from the impression that it makes no sense to entertain this abstract speculations about the reasons to what's going on, that it's utterly pointless at that moment. And you being sort of the most related, the most important to the whole mess, the whole catastrophe, do you have any ideas if any anthropology makes sense right now from your perspective? Thanks.
Tina, давай ты, потім я скажу.
Okay, maybe first I will start that these don't have to be only emotional stories. There are so much emotions everywhere, and they impress so much. Yes, but this research don't have to be only about these emotions. Maybe first that comes to my head is research about Ukrainian nationalism from the new perspective, because a lot of researches that were done in Ukraine during the last 8 years or more, they were just looking at the Ukrainian nationalism from the Western perspective and not from the insider perspective. And I think that we can really think about it in new conditions and think about it from the insider's perspective here.
I will only add that I think we have to note the events, well, to fix the events, to make notes, as it was said, because the situation is changing extremely fast. And I think the duty of a scholar, which is we are in Ukraine, just to make notes, to make these events in a system, like to catalog these events, if I may say so. Because the time will come when we will be able to analyze, when we will be a little bit distant. We can't be distant at all because this is our home and it's been damaged for 2 weeks and we don't know when it all will end. But to catalog these events, I think it's a duty nowadays. We have to do this. To collect memes as Tina does, to think about what other people are doing in different places. For me, every day is important, like what people are doing in their everyday. What is everyday now? Some material things, again, religion, because I research religion and religion matters nowadays, because many churches of every confession in Ukraine serve as shelters, as bomb shelters for people, and as home shelters for those who don't have home nowadays. So I think it's important just to develop this anthropological eye for everyone, to see how the things are changing around us and to note this. Well, this is my opinion.
Mm-hmm. We have a question from Professor Oksana Kis. Unfortunately, we can hear.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Hello, everyone, and thank you both presenters for sharing their experiences and observations and reflections of what's going on in Ukraine, in different cities, in different locations. I do have a couple of questions and comments, but I will limit myself only to 2 of them. As you probably know, the Center for Urban History here in Lviv, I come from the city of Lviv, launched a project together with Polish Academy of Sciences, the Institute of Philosophy and Sociology in Warsaw, the Oral History Project, to record the testimonies of those who were forced to flee from the bombarded cities, of the refugees, you know, of these internally displaced persons and those coming to Poland, for instance, seeking for asylum because of war. I know both of you, Julia and Tina, you belong to this Center of Applied Anthropology. I know it's not the right time to ask the question about the research project, but do you really think in a perspective about a project on the everyday life during the war? I mean, the anthropological project researching the everyday practices of people surviving the bombardment in the cities or living through the process of immigration, for instance, or moving to the other places or being the refugees. So this is the question about the potential idea of a research project. And another comment of mine concerns the observations presented by Julia about women's solidarity and mutual assistance during the process of escaping the dangerous places. I really appreciate your attention to this topic. I myself researched, you know, this phenomenon of women's mutual support groups in the Stalinist Gulag camps and prisons, where women, the female political prisoners formed a kind of sisterhood, helping one another to survive the harshest times. So, and this is a kind of work which during the normal life, in our everyday practices, it's this care work, this emotional labor goes unnoticed quite often, unappreciated, and it's something invisible, taken for granted, and only during these, especially crisis times, during these extreme circumstances, it becomes so visible and so significant and in high demand. And I believe that we, especially myself, I believe myself as a feminist anthropologist, this is just my personal duty to document these kinds of activities and how important it is for ordinary citizens to go through the hard times with this emotional and all kinds of support women are showing each other, you know, consoling one another, cheering up those who are in desperate situation and helping physically and morally and so on and so forth. So I would say this is the right time to actually show how important those everyday female practices and activities are when it comes to surviving the war. Thank you.
Oksana, thank you very much for your comment. I will answer shortly. Yes, you are right. I was actually overwhelmed by this female solidarity and the way how women were helping each other. And I saw that there are no children of other women, because these children are actually our children, even for such women as I don't have children, I'm not married, but I was also helping with children the way I can, the way I know. So, and especially those teenagers without kids, I can't imagine being 11 years old or 12 without parents going to nowhere. So yes, it's very important. And I wrote a lot of notes actually about that train and the female solidarity I witnessed there and witnessed in Khmelnytskyi. So probably in time when I will be more calm, when I will have a laptop or a place to work, it will come to something bigger than just note or my reflection. But I need to sleep first and I need a place to work first. So that's, and about the project, again, it's a good idea, if I may say. Tina will say what she thinks, but I don't think we will have the physical possibility to work out this project nowadays. Well, for me, it's impossible. My books and everything I have is in Kyiv. Without any technical issues, I can't work. So, and with this, the context of war, with ongoing news and asking every morning and every night, many people, how are you? It's also sort of impossible. But in time, maybe when the war will be in a less active phase, I would think about it. We will think as a Center for Applied Anthropology. Tina?
No, for me, I'm not sure about writing something about the war in Ukraine in the future, but I just can't know certainly. So maybe the biggest problem is the distance. Yes, you have talked about, and me also. I didn't write a word about Maidan and about war on the Donbass because it is too personal and too emotional for me. And this war is also so much emotional and so much personal. So I'm not sure if one day I can do this, but maybe with some time, after some time, maybe with some small focus, but I'm not sure.
Yes, Tina is right. Maybe with some small focus on case, like women in the train helping each other, or women volunteering, or every day. But again, it's easier to conduct a field work and have a field which somehow is distant from your personal experience, despite all the reflexivity, autoethnography, and many other things we know that are already elaborated in cultural anthropology. So,
because right now, as for me, I can write only about anthropology of anger, and that's all.
Okay, Professor Buchowski, please.
Thank you very much. And really, I don't know how to even express it, how much gratitude we owe to you. We really appreciate what you do. And it's not a question, maybe some comment and some very humble advice. First is the question of a project. Of course, it depends how you define a project. Of course, this is not a project that you have designed and you have work packages or anything like this. You are, sorry for this expression, and I hope it will be over as soon as possible, participant observators. And you probably, what you do actually is that you take notes, and you will see, hopefully, how these notes can be used in the future and how you would conceptualize, looking back in the near future, I hope, maybe even today. Yet, what was it and how to reflect upon this? So this is a project which is unintentional, totally unintentional project. And the second remark is that it was so valuable for me. And of course, we here, and at least, I watch TV almost all the time, and things on what's going on in Ukraine. And there is a huge coverage of it. But what you do is really something that we can't even imagine how difficult it is and how important it is. But it is also, what I would like to stress is that I am also reading what some, let's say, anthropologists, global anthropologists, write about war in Ukraine. And this is so detached and so, I would say, artificial and so ununderstandable perspective what they do present in a, let's say, focal blog or in many other places, that listening to you, thanks to listening to you, I have not lost a hope in anthropology.
Thank you, Professor Buchowski. We are very much pleased to hear this, especially from you. I was inspired by the book, The Twilight Zones of Anthropology, which I read several years ago about anthropology in Central and Eastern Europe. and your article about anthropology in post-communist Poland. So we actually founded our NGO, the Center for Applied Anthropology, with these high hopes to develop cultural anthropology in Ukraine. And we still hope it may exist and may develop anthropology somehow. But yes, this is participant observation we have never wanted.
Thank you.
Grzegorz Demel, please.
Thank you very much for your very honest and very personal speeches. But my question is about something different. You mentioned the language question in Ukraine, and you mentioned the Western notion of nationalism. In Polish newspapers reads that we can witness the birth of Ukrainian political or Ukrainian modern nation right now. But I have heard it for 20 years. During the Orange Revolution, during the Revolution of Dignity, during the 8 years of war in Donbass, and right now. Do you think it's still appropriate notion to describe the Ukrainian identity and its to describe Ukrainian identity in its dynamic? It's the first part of the question, and the second part is: do you think the notions of ukraińska nacja, ukraiński naród i naród Ukrainy still differs or not? Thank you.
Юль, може ти почнеш, і я тоді продовжу.
Okay, добре. Well, it's a huge question. Thank you very much. It's a great question, and it's multi-layered for me. Well, yeah, I have heard about the birth of Ukrainian nation since 1992. That was the year when I went to school. I'm from 1985. So when I was studying at school, I have heard this process that Ukrainian nation is in birth. Українська нація народжується, Українська нація народилася, have born through the 10 years of school, then through the 5 years of university, 3 years and a half of PhD studies in Kyiv, then Orange Revolution, Maidan, as you mentioned, all that. And we forgot about the revolution on granite, Rewolucja na granicie from the 1990s. Yes, you're right. So I think these all were the stages, the painful stages of actually the establishment of the nation. Yes, because referring to the second part of your question, Ukraińska nacja, what is Ukrainian nation? It's for me, all those people who are Ukrainian citizens from Ukraine of different ethnic, religious, language, cultural backgrounds, who consider them to be part of something bigger, part of Ukrainian nation. My father was Russian. He considered himself to be part of Ukrainian nation. He lived in Ukraine for many years. He knew Ukrainian language, but we spoke Russian at home. There are Greek settlements, Bulgarian settlements, Albanian settlements, Gagauz, Moldova, Romanian settlements in the south of Ukraine. So they have all different ethnic backgrounds. There are Jewish, there are Polish, there are Belarusians in the north. Ukraine is very diverse. But if people consider themselves to be part of something bigger, part of Ukrainian nation, being loyal to Ukrainian state, and they see their future within Ukrainian state, then they are all part of diverse Ukrainian nation. Well, we all have different, let's say, ethnic roots. my mother's family have Polish, Jewish, Ukrainian roots, whatever. So I'm very much mixed, but I'm part of Ukrainian nation. As for the categories of narod, like people, or ethnos, I prefer people than ethnos because for me it's more, people is bigger than the ethnic group, let's say. It's difficult to say. Prefer Ukrainian nation as a political category which encompasses all those people of very different backgrounds who live in Ukraine and see their future with Ukraine. What we see now, perhaps politologists and historians consider it to be like the last painful and bloody phase of the establishment of Ukrainian nation. But for me, this nation have been already established during the Maidan, and then during that solidarity we witnessed when the war started, when the Crimea was annexed. So there were huge voluntarily movement as well. Today it's even bigger. But I know that Russian propaganda uses the Russian-speaking Ukrainian, the people who speak Russian in Ukraine, Russian-speaking Ukrainians, as, you know, this turning point of their invasion, like they defend Russian-speaking people in Ukraine, but being Russian-speaking in Ukraine doesn't mean to be Russian. Even if people are ethnically Russian, they consider themselves to be part of Ukrainian nation. So this is that phenomena. But well, I don't think if we can actually compare this with other colonial heritages all over the world, when the language of the former empire and then nation who colonized was used by the other nations, but not defining the identity. I mean, English language, half of the world speak English as a native language, but they are not all British. Well, that's Tina.
I will add a little bit. First of all, being Ukrainian is not just not being Russian. Yes, it is a very important first point. But honestly saying, it was a lot of ambivalence in attitude to Russia in eastern and west, in eastern and southern parts of Ukraine. And I think that after this war, this ambivalence will be gone at all. Yes, but besides not being Russian, Ukrainians are still looking for something that form their identity. Yes, that help them to understand, and then we know who we are not, but who we are. We are still maybe looking for these words to describe this solidarity, for these words for describe this sense of belonging. And I'm sure we will find them during, I don't know what period of time, but yes, it's true that we are looking for them, and I'm sure we will find them one day.
I think, I don't know whether you have seen the interview of the main rabbin of Kyiv. He's a Russian speaker, he's from St. Petersburg, he's Jewish Russian, but he told that he's Ukrainian, and after Russians bombed Babi Yar, Holocaust memorial place, he was just outraged, overwhelmed, and he had this very passionate conversation, like, I am also Ukrainian, I am Jewish, I am Russian speaker, but all synagogues in Ukraine are now opened as bomb shelters and as shelters for refugees. So this is, again, one little part to the mosaics. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any question? So thank you, Julia and Tina, for such important voices from Ukraine. And I hope the war ends tomorrow, and we waiting for much more better information from Ukraine, from this front of war. Dziękuję.
Dziękuję.
Thank you. Sława Ukrainie. Putin i na chuj.
And I want to thank you, all of you who came here today, and I want to thank Tomasz for organization and Poznań Adam Mickiewicz Institute of Anthropology and Ethnology for the organization of this event, and to all the academic scholars from the West who support us, and to all the Polish and not Polish people who support Ukraine in these difficult times. Thank you all from us.
I'm just joining to this thanks because I'm very grateful for having us here and for listening to our emotional talks. Dziękujemy bardzo, a szczególnie dziękuję Polsce za to niesamowicie wsparcie i przyjęcie, które teraz mamy. Dziękuję bardzo.
Jak już w takich kategoriach mówimy, to my dziękujemy Wam.
And good luck.
Dziękujemy tym wszystkim i dziękujemy tym wszystkim, którzy przyszliście tutaj na to spotkanie i zareagowaliście tak spontanicznie. Thank you very much for your speech and poignant testimony. Dear all.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye. Do powodzenia.
Thank you. Bye.